Welcome to the show. It's deep with the twist. We're laughing through the scriptures where humor coexists. Cultural, come on and take a seat. It's faithful and it's fun wherever it meets feet. Dive into the stories, hear the podcast call. It's Mormon stuff with a smile in the cultural hall.
It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall. This is an Articles of News episode with all news pertaining to those that aren't in Zion. The mission field, a mission field-centric, anything without the square borders that are arbitrarily disclosed as Zion. That is what this news will be. Is it?
You mean you're talking about the majority of the church? In other words, outside of the borders of that straight line state, Utah.
Yeah, some would argue where the church is true. Outside of the boundaries of Utah, whereas in Utah you go, I don't feel like people that follow Jesus would treat people like this, but that's neither here nor there. We'll get to those coming up in the Articles of News. I want to share this with you really quick, and then we'll take a break and come back and do that Articles of News. Again, this will be a little bit of a shorter episode. I taught my elders quorum on this past Sunday. And
what did you teach them?
We taught about hope. About the triumph of hope.
Wonderful. That's fantastic.
It's Elder Anderson's talk.
Yes.
October General Conference, just like everyone else, get to sign the talk. And I thought, how will I do it? How should I teach these people this lesson that really we should have just studied on our own and read, and maybe we could be talking about something else? I'm a little jaded. But I got in and I thought, okay, what are things that I know that need to be true within my particular elders quorum? There are older elders and younger elders, and not a lot of middle-aged elders, and never the two shall meet as far as the older and the younger. Does that make sense?
Except you're the bridge, right? You're the bridge there.
I tried to be a bridge. I'm trying to be a bridge. But it is people that have been in ward in relation church-wise 40 years, 50 years. I remember when we first moved to this ward and our kids were still home and they've moved, so that kind of thing. And then these new folks that are in the ward. And I thought, okay, well, so I want to harbor some welcoming of let's get to know other people. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do just the same old, I'm going to, what's hope? That kind of thing. So what I decided I was going to do was, first of all, and to anyone who hasn't done this, if you have to teach on a talk from General Conference, copy and paste that General Conference talk into ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT to give you a lesson plan. Write a lesson plan to teach this talk. Done. And you can even
Was it good? Was it a good lesson plan?
Hold your horses, Verlin. Okay. But you can even say it's a 45-minute lesson. It will have it broken up into how much time you should have and what quotes you might want to use from that particular thing. You don't have to use it. Follow the Spirit as it prompts. But if you are one that, oh my gosh, I have to teach, or I found out an hour before and I don't know how to, use the resources that God inspired man to do. Anyway. I thought what I'm going to do is, because we always have our back row Joes, the same guys who sit on the back row, who don't participate, who, all that. And the people that talk too much, we always have those as well.
We can all name them.
Yeah. Yes. And all of our, whatever. So I went in during sacrament meeting and I put chairs of 4. So like a north, an east, a south, and a west, and put a bunch of little clumps of 4.
You did breakout groups?
Within the room. Not breakout groups, because if we would have done seats in a line and said, now break out into 4, they don't do it. I literally changed the chairs and broke it up during sacrament meeting and came back and then went to class. As soon as it was amen from the prayer, already one of the older guys in the ward was starting to put the chairs in the rows. And I said, no, don't do that. They're intentionally the way they are. And he was like, I And I was like,
Does not compute.
yeah, just find a place to sit. And then the next elder who came in, and I know this will sound like hyperbole, I know this will sound like I'm being exaggerative. It was like he walked into a murder scene. If you saw his face, he walked in and he's like,
It's like someone sat in his row in the chapel.
I don't, and the consternation in the room from everyone. Everyone.
I love it. You should have recorded it.
Everyone in that room. So we say the opening prayer, and I said something like, as I'm opening, I'm like, I pray that the Spirit will guide our conversation today, even though many of you have lost your mind because the chairs are in a different setup. And they don't appreciate it, right? They're 60 plus. They don't want anything to do with a change. You teach it this way, we receive it this way. I know I'm generalizing, and that's not everyone, but it was so tangibly awkward.
Oh, that is great.
And
that is great.
To the point that I finally had to say, everyone, I don't teach every week. It won't be like this maybe ever again. I would like you to embrace the way that I have tried to, right?
Yeah.
So then within the class, each of the positions had an assignment, right? So one person had to stand up and share something that someone in the group was doing that week that they were excited about. So like, one guy is preparing for a trip to Brazil where he hasn't been since he served his mission. Super cool, didn't know, very quick, did that kind of thing. One of the positions in the circle was they had to tell something that they learned about someone else, not themselves, because I gave them a few minutes to kind of just talk and, get to know each other. And then as part of that also too, one of the people that were in the circle had to be the voice for the group. And we did do things like, what is hope? Why do we need hope? Where are places we can find hope and all this stuff, right? So we did a traditional lesson. But people paid attention, and people who never participated.
Yeah.
We sort of do the round robin thing. We hit all of the things. And finally, after honestly 20 minutes, it finally started to calm down that we were seated in different ways. But it was easily
it was a struggle.
15 minutes. It was like
struggle.
And when people came in late, we don't know where to sit. Sit anywhere you would like.
There's empty chairs.
Yes, an open chair. So we get to the end though, and we only have like a minute or two, and I really do firmly believe, and I know people feel differently about this, but as a teacher, I don't feel that I teach anything. And I know that people are like, oh, that's the humble brag of that you allow the Spirit to whatever. Like I don't know that I taught anything, but I just sort of shared, hey, this is how I think we're going to do this time. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And then I'm going to make sure that we do all the things that we said we were going to do. That's nothing teaching, right?
No, that's right. That's coordinating, facilitating.
And so we get to the end. We have a couple minutes to bear testimony. And I knew that I wanted to share the very last 2 lines of Elder Anderson's talk, but we had more time than that. And I said, is there anyone here that would be willing to bear testimony about a time that they had either lost hope or where their hope in Jesus Christ was able to sustain them? And these 2 guys, almost like synchronized swimmers, hands at the same time. And I'm like, we only have time for one of these. Let's do 2 of them. I'm a end on the hour kind of guy. Yep. First guy's like, well, I may have shared this before. I think I have. He talks about how he was engaged to be married before, and how 2 weeks out of his wedding, he gets an audio file from his fiance that says, we're not getting married. Don't ever contact me again.
Wow.
Don't reach out to me. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Cold turkey, nothing. I'll mail the thing. All that, like that's it, right? This is it. Don't anything else. And he talks about how,
close.
Yeah, he's just like devastated. Doesn't understand. Has no closure, and all the other stuff. And he's like, and I felt, all the things. But he's sharing. I felt like worthless. I felt like God had sustained this relationship, and so I didn't know. Like, did I do something wrong? Does God not exist? Why would He, bless me with the Spirit to know this thing? And he also then is talking about how his wife is pregnant and having their first kid this week, and how he, how because he didn't lose hope that he's able to be in this great place that he is now, and that he can't imagine from the depths of that despair to the hope that he is now, all that thing, right? So and everyone's like, wow, what a profound experience.
Wow.
And then the next guy is like, my story isn't as cheery as that. And I'm like, okay. So this guy is new in the ward, probably been there a month or two. He raised in Mexico, I think Mexico City, but don't know that for sure. But talks about how as a kid he was tortured, literally tortured, and how he wishes that he would have died. But then he found a scripture in First John that says, "Remember that you're mine, and that I know my children," and all these things. Have hope that we are children of God, and that we are in fellowship with Christ. And he's like, and that's how I did it. And he's like, and now, like the things that I I just wanted to live where I wasn't being tortured, but now I'm with a wife whom I love, and I'm able to, have had an education and all these things. Just these amazing testimonies of hope. Turn it back to me. Read the testimony from Elder Anderson. Amen. Let's say the closing prayer. Get
Drop
out.
the mic.
Yeah, on time, by the way.
Holy
on
smokes.
time, everyone.
Miracles.
And so we get done with the closing prayer, and here is why I am not a good person.
What did you do?
I didn't do anything, but I wanted to, the prayer, amen. I said amen. Everyone says amen. And I almost said, but didn't. Hey, y'all, stop. Do you remember how terrible you were all being 45 minutes ago? And how this could not have happened under different circumstances? Do we all remember how terrible we were? Can we not be that terrible next time, maybe, and just trust that, doing something different may yield a different result? Can we do that? I didn't say any of that.
No. But in your mind, you did. That's okay.
But I'm sure that my face also said it, and that's why I know I'm a horrible person. Because people are like, great lesson. Again, I didn't teach anything within the lesson. Genuinely, I'm not being humble. I didn't teach anything within that lesson.
Yeah, you did it the way it's supposed to be done.
But I just felt so angry leaving, where it's like, we could have almost not had that, everyone. And yet, and it's not just an LDS church thing, although this does run rampant within the church.
It does.
It is a human behavior thing that we go, not sure how to do different. I don't know. What if we did it different? It'd be different. Well, I don't know. What's different? Like, I don't know. Okay.
I love it. In our quorum, I happen to be the one that assigns the topics to be taught. And I volunteered our presidency that we're each going to teach one lesson a month. And then we have an instructor that teaches one lesson a month. And so I am severely tempted to follow your model and see what the human reaction is and see if our ward is any different than your ward. I'm going to guess it's not.
I would love to know. I would love to know, and I'm sure that it isn't. Maybe age-wise would be a little bit different, but as I sit there, I think the greatest Sunday school, and I know Elders Quorum and Sunday school not the same, but it is church classes. The greatest Sunday school that I've ever sat in, taught by Thomas McConkie. He's been a guest on the Cultural Hall a few times.
Yeah.
Started out with like meditative music, and he's got the whole like bowl and making.
Oh, he's
sounds.
doing the sounds with the bowl.
Yeah. Yes. And it wasn't like he's like, and God wants me to bring the sound of the bowl, but it was a different positioning of my mind to be open, to put aside all the other stuff that I would be thinking about, and to be present in the situation. I could never do something like that in my ward.
Oh,
the heresy, cool. The heresy. I guess when I'm ready to be done being a teacher, I can do something like that. And then they can be like, yep, that was a great last time. Thanks for trying something unappreciated.
Are you saying that's one way I could potentially get released from being Elders Quorum president?
Oh, I've got a lot of ways. When you're ready, you let me know. But I know that that's not who you are. So
no, it's not.
Yep,
it's not. But I love shaking things up. I love that idea. I'm gonna apply that myself. There are a couple of people in our quorum that claim to listen to this show in podcast form, and so I'm going to challenge them to come up and tell me on Sunday about this. And if no one talks to me, then I'll know they're lying.
Yeah, liars. You liars.
Exactly.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to do non-Zion-centric news. bestdjinutah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the cultural hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. bestdjinutah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now, bestdjinutah.com. Here in the second half of Articles of News, we do actual articles of news. Hit it, Peter.
You can't lose articles of news.
And before away we go, let me say, become a Patreon saint of the Cultural Hall. Why don't you? Patreon.com/The Cultural Hall. Going to try and get to 1,000 episodes by the end of the year. January was rough. I'm going to have to pick it up a lot more than what I've been doing so far if we're going to get there. It's a lot of time, and you can show that you appreciate it by putting a couple dollars in the old Patreon, patreon.com/The Cultural Hall. Or if you're like, listen, I don't want to do a monthly thing. I'd like it to do just a one-time thing. There are two ways you can go about that. One, you can send an email, contact@theculturalhall.com, and say, hey, is there a Venmo? Is there a thing that we can do as far as that goes? We're not a 501c3. It goes right to my bank account, and for things like hosting and other programs that we use, that's what I take that money and pay for. The other way you can get money to us is if you ever see Kurt Frankum in and around and about. He's going on this LDS cruise with BYU folks. Bring all your money on that cruise and hand it to him, and tell him that he has to be honest with where.
And he only takes a very small commission from that.
No, he
right?
said he won't. He said no commission.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Well, but I want to make sure that we give him no sort of leeway to keep any of it or forget. So 100% of the proceeds given to Kurt Frankum will make their way back to me. The rate at which they make it back to me, he said, may take some time, but ultimately they will get back to me. So
by far the most entertaining method.
Yes, and you should. I'll let you take the first news story. These are non-Utah centric, the mission field articles of news. That's what these will be. Where are we going?
Well, let's start with the fires. The fires continue to burn, although there's been some, as they would say in Utah, some moisture lately. There has been some rainfall. Some of the fires are more contained than they have been in the past. There are fewer fires than ever before, but some still continue to burn. Meanwhile, the church is continuing to provide aid and support. The latest is an additional $1.2 million contribution to help people with food insecurity, health insecurity, shelter in the short term. And I know that it's just going to be more and more help that's provided over the coming months. The church is already saying, if you want to assist, you can, of course, donate to the church on your other line, on your donation form or online, where most people donate now, or donate to the American Red Cross, the International Medical Corps, Project Hope, Save the Children. All of those are creating programs and aid for all of the people that have been displaced and for those that have literally lost everything. I thought it was really interesting the other day. I was watching a news report, and someone made the point that, of course, there's a wide range of income levels of people that have been affected. There are people that had very, very little. There are people that had huge amounts. Both are homeless. Both have lost everything. Both are going to have to recover. Some will recover easier than others, but we should be kind and charitable to all who've lost something in these terrible disasters.
Yeah, I like also and I think that you didn't mention this, the Just Serve. There are lots of service projects that you can do, even if you don't live in California, projects that have been made available if you find the Just Serve app or you go onto justserve.org, and you can be able to do some things that can make their way to California. And also with the moisture, like you're talking about, and I love that we call it moisture, is there more of a Mormon thing than that? But now they're like, hey, all these burn scar areas, there has already been, mudslides and landslides and all of that. So a rough go for people there in California.
Yeah.
And
we all tease them of living in, the celestial land where the temperature is always right, but they deal with their own set of challenges, whether it's fires, earthquakes, they have a good set of challenges, just like everyone else does.
And I know though that there is some like coastal envy and or animosity because North Carolina, right? North Carolina, not South Carolina, North Carolina that was completely decimated
Yep,
hasn't gotten nearly the publicity, the amount of
not near the
publicity
publicity. Yeah.
or like outreach as California has. And the church has shown up there, service opportunities there, board members going out
Oh,
there, et cetera, et
thousands of
cetera.
people have spent time there already, and more will spend time again. Yeah.
And that situation slowly getting better, but not exponentially, right? Little by little,
Yeah, and
just
if you think about
decimated.
it, the people in North Carolina, they're in the mountains of North Carolina. We had snow here in the lowlands last weekend, and up in the mountains, it's true winter. It's freezing. They're trying to deal with, shelter that is terrible. The weather is terrible as well. Think about being in Utah and trying to live in a tent
Oof.
at the same time. That's where
Yep.
they're at.
Yep. There are people here that are doing this, doing that. Couple quick news stories. There is a Spanish speaking congregation in Decatur, Illinois. They formed a Spanish speaking congregation. If you don't know where Decatur is, it's part of the Springfield, Illinois stake. It's in the center of Illinois. It is a branch, as I understand it.
That's
It
right.
is the Decatur third branch, Spanish speaking. Um, Weekly services and activities all held in Spanish, which is super cool. The Springfield, Illinois stake also organized a young single adults branch based in Springfield for adults between 18 and 35 just this last December. So, super serving the needs perhaps of the people there
Yeah.
in the Springfield area. I think that's awesome. There are some people that don't care for the young single adult ward, think that those should all be kind of incorporated into the family wards. I don't think so. Certainly on the younger end, a case can be made 25 plus. That's when you should go back to the family wards. I get it, a single ward being older, etc.
That's where they've added an additional 5 years, and YSAs can now be up to 35 years old.
Yeah, and you can have that kind of older YSA ward that's what, like 26 to 35, something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
But then also to be able to if you don't speak English or whatever the language of where you're at, to be able to
Yeah.
worship with that. And then I think also too, what I like about it, we have a Spanish ward that meets in my building. Um, the traditions and the things that like I just don't understand. The only thing that I wish we would do is I wish that occasionally we would get to do activities with them
Yeah.
because I don't think that it feels far too separate. I get why they would want to worship, and be able to speak in
In
their
their
own
own
language and all
language,
those
sure.
things. But I would love the opportunity once a year, once every 6 months, around stake conference or something like that, that we are able to go. And I know I could go to the ward at any time and all of that stuff, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like something a little bit more easy on ramping to be able to go, yeah, Spanish ward, I'll come. What are we doing? Honor our heritage?
Absolutely.
Cool. I have no idea how Guatemala is different than, you know, Colombia. I'd love to learn. Sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic. One of my favorite things was be invited to speak in our Spanish branch in our stake. It was a wonderful experience. Just to sing the songs in Spanish
Oh,
was a
yeah.
fantastically spiritual experience. And so, yeah, I think it's great people get to worship in the language they want to worship in. In our ward, in our stake, we actually have a French group. We have a
Hmm.
group of people from Africa that speak French as one of their languages, along with their native language. And so all of our meetings are translated into French,
Interesting.
which is very interesting. And you wouldn't think there's a lot of French speakers, but in our ward, outside of these people from Africa, there are at least a dozen people in the ward that speak French well enough
Hmm.
to be able to interact with these saints and participate with them.
I think
So
that's cool.
wonderful.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. I'll hit this real quick just because it's basically a one-off. We're a week post the inauguration at this point.
Mhm.
And elders Gary E. Stevenson and Garrett W. Gong both represented the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at the inauguration.
They did. My question was, what activities did they go to? Because as we all know, the big inauguration on the steps of the Capitol did not occur this time. It was moved indoors due to freezing temperatures.
Mm.
The attendance level was limited extremely. And based on the article, I could not confirm whether they were actually in the inauguration itself or just at some of the events surrounding the inauguration.
Yeah, there's like 3 dinners and something like that.
Dinners, an indoor parade, the rally that they held. all of those things.
Elder Gong quoted as saying, "We wish this administration and all those that serve this country in any capacity strength and wisdom for so great a cause. Our best wishes and heaven sent prayers to all our local, national, and world leaders at this important time." And then Elder Stevenson said, "Being in Washington, D.C. at such a time as this is an honor. The enduring principles that have been the foundation of our nation are important guides for our personal lives, families, and communities." And, members of the church have gone back to this since 1873. So
Yeah.
is it a big deal? I think it's a cool deal.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got invited.
Yeah.
The people that take a lot of issue, I think, are missing the point.
Exactly. They're there to honor the country and honor the office of the president and honor all of the institutions that have to be supported to make this country work the way it does.
And like, I'll take it a step further. If I was invited, I don't much care for much. Currently, I don't feel like I have to hide that. I feel like most people know that I'm not particularly good at
I'm
that.
shocked.
But are you? Are you shocked?
And appalled.
But I would go.
Yeah, of
because
course.
I don't think that by attending you're like, yeah, it's my guy, 100% on board. No. I think that there's an honor about being invited. There's the opportunity to be invited, and to me, it's sort of the curiosity. And one of the things that I would be proud to be an American about is this process of this is what we do and how we do.
It's a historical occasion. It only happens every 4 years, and as children. In grade school, we memorize every president, right? Well, we memorize every president because we honor those that hold the office.
I don't know this or not, but I think it was Elder Gong, maybe Elder Stevenson, that at one of the banquets asked that the food may nourish and strengthen the bodies of those that eat it, and that the hands be blessed
that prepared it.
That prepared it.
Oh, absolutely, I'm sure.
And they go, does every Mormon? I've heard that from every Mormon. Where do you want to go next with this?
I want to go from something that was historical presidential inauguration to a complete mischaracterization of history. Can we do that?
Sure.
I was pretty strong in one of the last articles of news episodes to say that this America Prime Evil was 99.9% fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And that was me and my personal thought. I think it's really interesting that the church put out an official statement along similar lines. I'm not sure that was the best thing to do. It's certainly the best thing to do for Netflix. I'm sure it drove a whole nother set of people to go watch this thing. I did learn that my daughter watched the first 10 minutes of the first episode and could not handle the gore and the violence.
Yes.
And she was a little aghast that her father had watched the whole series.
Well, she thought better of you. I know you well enough.
That's right, exactly.
You are as a real person, but
now
in
I'm
your
worried
daughter's
that
eyes,
she feels a lot less than what she did before.
Guess my dad's not perfect, she said.
That's right. But I'll quote from the church's statement. They say a recently released, and there'll be links to this in the show notes. This is an article in it's the Deseret News by Tad Walsh. And the statement from the church was, a recently released streaming series presents a fictionalized interpretation of events in mid-19th century Utah. While historical fiction can be illuminating, this drama is dangerously misleading. Brigham Young, a revered prophet and courageous pioneer, is by any historic standard egregiously mischaracterized as a villainous, violent fanatic. Other individuals and groups are also depicted in ways that reinforce stereotypes that are both inaccurate and harmful. So it goes on to make some of the same statements I did last time we chatted about mischaracterization of those involved in the Mountain Meadow Massacre. I thought what was brilliant is in comments from the producer, Peter Berg, he was very quick to say the church has not denied that some of these things happened.
Sure.
And what the church is saying is that it's not being portrayed historically. And frankly, he agreed with that. And so I think that's interesting. This is pure fiction with a little bit of history touching it. And I would hope that would drive people to actually be curious enough to go learn some of the real history behind it.
One of the things that I've appreciated as kind of a byproduct of this, Barbara Jones Brown, one of the co-authors of the book about the Mountain Meadows Massacre. She and Richard Turley. Vengeance is Mine. Is that what it's called? Will you look
That's
real
right.
quick? I want to make
Yeah.
sure. That
Yeah,
is
it
what
is.
it's called,
Vengeance
right?
is mine. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
had them in the cultural hall, talk to all about that. What I love is that her and others are speaking about, like, here is what is accurate, here
Yeah.
is what is inaccurate, and it's unfortunate, but when you watch American Primeval, assuming that you do, I think that you can hear about the Mountain Meadows Massacre, and we can sort of, timeline or storybook characterize what it was. Well, there were a
Yeah.
group of these that were coming this, and this was this, and we didn't tell him to, but he didn't say, but then this happened, and then there's a monument years later. And we sort
Yeah.
of can put that all together like that. To your daughter's point, even though it is not historically accurate in location and some of the other things, some of the things are very accurate in that they say that, these types of things occurred and they are depicted within that show. It
Yes.
it, it is, humbling is not the right word. It is so
I took
graphically
it as
telling.
graphically shocking.
Yes.
But then when I sat and contemplated it, that was exactly the kind of violence that occurred in those situations.
Yes. And in particular in that situation. And so I go,
Yeah.
do I need to see it to understand it completely? I don't know. There's everyone that's like, the mandatory listening or watching, even if you don't watch rated R movies, is you should have to watch, Saving Private Ryan, and you should have to watch
Yeah. Band of
Schindler's List and all
Brothers,
that.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. There's all that claim. I don't know, but I will say, when they say a picture says 1,000 words, when you're able to see something that is something far more like just grounding to have you go, oh, huh,
Yeah.
where I can read and study about it and be told about it and
Well,
not feel the
I
same way.
have a very hard time with terrible things that have happened in the past. Not that this is analogous to the Holocaust, but I had the hardest time as a high schooler wrapping my mind around the Holocaust. And I would look at these pictures and I would literally be heartbroken and depressed for days after looking at the pictures and have to come out of it. And I had a very similar reaction to America Primeval.
Hmm.
The Mountain Meadow Massacre is absolutely the most horrendous thing that ever happened as a result of members of our church. And we need to recognize that and accept that for what it is. It's historically true, and we need to learn from it.
Yep.
And understanding that shockingly awful impact of someone being scalped and then having a scalp sewn back on,
Oof.
or someone, all of the graphic things that happened. Um, and they, I don't want to sound like I'm glorifying it, but they did a fantastic job of the cinematography in giving you that impression, and making you feel the way that you feel as you watch those scenes.
To characterize the other part of the message from the church, just so that we're not highlighting on the fact that they were like, oh, it's incorrect and the villain is Brigham Young. They say further, the problem with such deceptive graphic and sensationalized storytelling is that it not only obscures reality and hinders genuine understanding, but it can also foster animosity, hate, and even violence. And this is particularly troubling today when peacemakers are needed more than ever. Goes on to quote, and echo the statement from President Russell M. Nelson. The Savior's message is clear. His true disciples build, lift, encourage, persuade, and inspire, no matter how difficult the situation. True disciples of Jesus Christ are peacemakers. Peacemaking is a choice. I urge you to choose to be a peacemaker now and always. But you can bet that the folks over at Netflix were like, thank you for,
Thank you for
pouring
amping this back
gasoline on
up.
this. Yep.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Where'd you want to go next?
Well, gosh, good question. Let's go to missionary activities.
Okay.
So the church has a new missionary preparation curriculum. It's called Missionary Preparation, a Teaching Resource. And this is something that's gone church-wide and is now being used for those stakes and wards that do missionary prep classes. I know our stake does a missionary prep series once a month for all of the juniors and seniors in high school. And I'm sure they'll be using this new curriculum that's come from the church.
So what's cool about this is it's not just learning missionary principles. So it's immersing them in preach my gospel. It's learning the missionary purpose. It's helping them make commitments that will help them live in the gospel or live the gospel of Jesus Christ, prepare for missionary service. But it also helps them practice skills that can help them become better gospel teachers and more emotionally resilient, which I think is a important part of it. The resources are divided up into core lessons and skill practices. For example, skills taught include how to introduce the Book of Mormon to people, respond to feelings of inadequacy, and using technology righteously. When are we going to have a member of the church preparation class to teach us emotional resiliency and how to use technology righteously, and the deeper meaning of the word of wisdom?
Well, they're doing these life skills courses for students that are in seminaries and institutes now.
Yeah.
It's not that far of a reach to think we might work on some life skills courses as a general membership of the church at some point.
Well, and in part, we have some of that now. If people have not seen these, it's in your app, the Gospel Library app. These things like an entire course sourced from many people, employment specialists as well, how to get a better job, how to interview for a job. And we hear about these things and we sort of think, that's not for me, that's for the unemployed person or whatever. But these are robust classes about how to make your resume better, things that involve AI, which you're experiencing because you're applying for a job now, but someone who's been in a job for 10 years probably wasn't dealing with when they went to apply for jobs. There's also things like a very, very, very descriptive, like budgeting and wants versus needs and all of these things, that the very essence of what we could do to be better people that align us to also be better stewards, which align us to be better disciples, which allow us to just be better people. And so often we're just like, but have you read Alma 37? Have you read 2nd Nephi 30?
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, and I need a job to pay for things and to help things and to
Well, and the latest addition to all of those kind of life skills things is a whole section that just went live on the Gospel Library app about adoption reunification.
Yes.
And I went out and clicked on it, and it's a great resource. It's not huge. It's a couple of pages of content that talks about the things you need to think about around adoption reunification. This is something that's becoming a bigger and bigger topic as people take these DNA tests. My sister and I were sitting around last week, and both she and I have taken these DNA tests. And so we were looking at our results and our matches, and we're a little different. And which was really interesting. And then we looked at our first cousins, and we looked at our second cousins, and we looked at our parents, and we're seeing some of these differences and wondering, okay, where did some of these differences come from? None of them were big enough to suggest that someone was adopted that we didn't know about. But because of a family situation on my mother's side of the family, I already knew that there was going to be information about my maternal grandfather's heritage that I would not be familiar with because I never met him. My mother never met him. But now I know that he was significantly Scottish and Irish because that's the only place that Scottish and Irish would come from, is from that particular bloodline. So as people do these DNA researches, more and more people are going to discover they're adopted, and more people are going to have that natural desire to reunite with their adoptive parents. And as many of us have seen, that can be a blessing, it can be joyful, and it can also be problematic. And so the church has some great advice and counsel, both for the adoptee as well as parents of those people that have been adopted, and helping all work through that process of reunification.
Yeah, I'd love to me, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I need to be humbled and take an opportunity to pray and ask God about this. But like, to me, I know that the very fundamental things are important. Faith, hope, charity, being baptized, making covenants, and all those things. I'm not saying that they aren't, but I think that we could sprinkle in a little bit more of these. Let's talk about emotional resilience, everyone. Where is that in the scriptures? Well, here are some examples of it, but we're actually just talking about the human skill of emotional resilience. That's what today's lesson is about. I hope that we can start to have some of
And
that.
I hope that we start to look at some of the conference talks that have been given for some of those topics. I think some of them have great content on those topics, and we tend to kind of overlook what they're saying about those topics, and unless it's something as blatant as what Elder Holland did some years ago when he talked about the broken vessel and
Yes.
depression
Yep.
and really dove into that topic. But I think a lot of what we're hearing from President Nelson about being peacemakers tells us a little bit about the human condition. And Elder Oaks talking about Jesus Christ and the blessings of a relationship with Jesus Christ and what it means to be a follower of Christ, or the lesson that you helped teach on hope recently. All carry some of those very human skills if we'll just dig in a little deeper than just the surface level that we all tend to pay attention to.
I think this is worth mentioning, and we've only got a few more minutes, so let's hit on this, and then we'll get whatever other ones we can. There was, at the inauguration, the Washington National Cathedral hosts the event, an interfaith service on the morning after every inauguration dating back to 1933. And Episcopal Washington Bishop Marianne Edgar, I think it's Buddha. Is that
I
how
think
you
it's
say it?
Buddha. Yeah.
Buddha? Delivered a sermon that urged Trump to find humility and show mercy on those in the country that are scared by the power that he now wields as 47th president. Some Episcopal leaders have actively denounced several of Trump's policy positions, including his stances on migrants and the transgender community, according to ABC. That was a week ago, and we've seen the things that he's done since then. So I posted on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Cultural Hall. Search out The Cultural Hall if you're not following us. We post most, if not all, of these news articles there. And it is a house divided on whether or not this was an appropriate thing for this individual to do, to say the things that they said, to offer that up in prayer for Donald Trump. Now, here's the thing that I would just, and I think I know how you feel about this, and I think that you and I probably feel similarly. I don't want to assume that, but I just hope that if they can remove President Trump or whomever from it and be able to read the words of this prayer as a prayer for a leader of a nation, I think that it can calm some of the fire of that's not okay. I would have a hard time seeing a regular person whom I would worship within the pews read the words of that prayer if they didn't know it was associated with Trump, whom they love in this case, or whom they hate. I tend to think that it is the person that it was about is why it became so electric, that it's not the actual words that were being said.
I would completely agree. If you take Trump out of the equation completely and just read the words of the sermon and prayer, you would say, yes, she is preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Clearly, in being humble and kind and merciful and long-suffering and patience and all Sermon on the Mount kind of things that we talk about in lessons. And I think you're right. I think the infamy of it was that Trump was there in the room and he chose to react, and his others around him chose to react in a way to be very defensive about it. And as I looked at it and thought about it, 51% of the popular vote voted differently than Trump. And so she was expressing some of the fears and hopes and desires of that 51%. And that was part of her role in doing that. I also tried to figure out what was the connection to the church, to our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I did find a connection there. And that was, the service itself was led by Buddha, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and Sikh leaders also delivered prayers for the gathering. So
we bless the refreshments. I already told you that earlier. It will nourish and strengthen us during this banquet.
Well, that was the problem. We obviously had the wrong refreshments. I'm not sure what President Trump's preferred refreshments are. I think it's French fries and Big Macs, if I remember correctly.
If I remember from 45, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Quickly through this, the church education says, hey, encourage students to continue diligently learning. There was the big 2025 Seminary and Institute annual training broadcast where Elder Clark G. Gilbert, a general authority and the Church Commissioner of Education, said, trust your students This is the only way that they will become who the Lord needs them to become. Teachers of the youth and young adults are not just disseminating information or simply inspiring students with dynamic personality and engaging lessons. We are preparing students to survive spiritually in an increasingly challenging season. So encourage them to diligently learn was the recommendation by Elder Gilbert.
And I thought his kind of key 3 points were applicable to all of us. One, invite learners to prepare to learn. In other words, have an open mind.
Yep.
Number two, encourage learners to share the truths they're learning. There's no better way to learn and to retain it than to share it with others. And the third, invite learners to live what they're learning, meaning you can actually learn something that may change your opinion and may change the way you live and what you do. Welcome that. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So I thought that was great advice.
This story I thought was odd. Not odd that we donated to a hospital in Serbia. The church, committed to serving and blessing the body of Christ, frequently donates medical equipment to improve the health of those in need. In Nice, maybe is how you say it, Serbia, cardiac surgeons at the university hospital there are now able to work with state-of-the-art equipment as they perform their various operations. Thanks to donations from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, reported the church's Europe newsroom. Now, cardiac is heart, correct?
That's right.
So here is my speculation here. It is, and let me make sure that I'm quoting this exactly correct. The church donated to this hospital in Serbia, and now this center is called the Brigham Young Video Endoscopic Center.
That's right.
And if you look at the link, which is supplied in the show notes, you'll see a very old Brigham Young in the hospital. It's full beard Brigham Young and the whole thing, right? It's Brigham Young. It's what we know Brigham Young to look like. Are we afraid of calling it the very on-the-nose Russell Nelson Cardiac Video Endoscopic Center?
No, they don't want to name too many things for President Nelson because they're still waiting for a certain medical school to be formalized.
Well, and 100% they will, right? And that makes sense to me. It just seems like such an odd, like Brigham Young. Okay, did Brigham Young go to Serbia? I don't think so. Probably
didn't go
not.
To Serbia. I don't think he supported heart surgery in any way, particularly.
So why Brigham Young and not Joseph Smith?
I don't know. It was quite curious, and I tried to search for why that is, right? And the gentleman who runs the center, I think his last name is Milic, said President Young was strong and vital for the survival of the church when the pioneers first entered the Salt Lake Valley. Similarly, Milic and his cardiac surgical team are pioneers in modern cardiovascular and transplant medical care.
Yep.
I think that's a stretch.
Yes. I'm pointing to the outfield and I am saying, upon the inevitable death of President Nelson, it will be the Russell M. Nelson Video Endoscopic Center in Serbia. And they just felt weird about doing it because you don't do that about people that are alive.
I think that's a great point. And I also think it's a great point, going back to the politics a little bit. We don't need to name things after people that are still alive. Let's wait until people are passed on and name things then.
Yeah. There's a lot. We're not going to get to all of it. Is there one more that you would like to hit as we wrap out? And then I'll do my last one and we'll call it.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of continued.
But you get to pick one. You get to pick one.
I'm going to pick this one, which is the church and the Seventh-day Adventists continue their humanitarian collaboration.
I didn't know we had. I didn't know we had
because one. Yeah, neither did I. But the Seventh-day Adventist Church's humanitarian arm, ADRA, has been cooperating with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, very similar to how we've been cooperating with Catholic Social Services and other similar organizations of other faiths to support projects around the world, and even to share best practices amongst each other. They note specifically leaders of the ADRA were particularly impressed with the church's welfare square and central storehouse and everything that goes with that. Because I get to work once in a while in the Bishop Storehouse activities, it always impresses me how efficient the church is and how generous the church is in providing that kind of resource to members. Really phenomenal capabilities. And I think it's wonderful that we work together with others that are doing good around the world and not just supporting ourselves and our own initiatives.
The last story I'll do, I think, because I'll just kind of wrap this out and be done with it. Murray Jones is a podcaster over in New Zealand. I mentioned this a long time ago when it first came out. Heaven's Helpline is the name of the podcast. They 6 or 8 episodes. It talks about his findings on how, and this is quoted from the article, how the Mormon Church handles sexual abuse allegations. It is not an easy listen to hear this podcast. I think it's instructional.
I think it's admirable that he took on such a tough topic.
And to note as a temple recommend holding individual that there are some things that we could do better.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing the consequences of us not doing those things better is extremely difficult. Within my family, without disclosing too much, there is, issues of sexual abuse and those things, and it's devastating and generational. And anyway, I reached out to Murray Jones. I said, "Hey, I'd love to have you on the Cultural Hall to be able to talk about it." He said, "Well, have Verlin connect us, and then I'll never respond." No, I'm teasing. Not doing interviews at this time. Overwhelmed by the response that they've received since they started putting the podcast out, and so it's not happening. But worthy to check it out. And I'm welcome if you listen to it and go, "Not for me," or "How dare you? Are you a wolf in sheep's clothing, Richie? Is that what you are?" I think that I think that you can listen to things. There are things that I don't listen to because I know that there is nothing redeeming for me in them. And then there are things that I go, "Listen, this is going to be hard. This is going to show blemishes and flaws and these things, but I can't not know about them." And so anyway, for whatever that is, I encourage people to sort of check that out as
something we can all do better, something we need to all keep our eyes and ears open and help. If we can help anyone avoid this or avoid it continuing in their lives in any way, that's critical. And I think what's admirable about what he's doing is he's using real stories. Real stories have power.
Yep.
And he's not, he's not making things up. This is not historical fiction.
Sure.
It's real accounts of real people who've been hurt and the devastating results of that hurt.
Yeah, and to your point too, it's not, and you can imagine that something like this might happen. It's like, nope, happened. Here's how. Oh, well, there's no way. Sorry, you don't get to tell me that this didn't happen. Says person that this happened.
Yeah,
anyway.
And I'm afraid there are many of us. I would venture to say the vast majority of members of the church, whether they know it or not, knows someone who has dealt with this.
Yes.
I've been surprised as people in confidence have shared with me things that have happened inside the church with their family that shock me. Doesn't shake my faith. It just tells me that we have a lot of humans and we have to do a better job of protecting those who are vulnerable in these situations.
Yeah. Well, that was cheery. Thanks for ending on that. I picked it. Sorry, everyone.
That's all right. Hey, thousands of young people are getting FSY experiences, and the lead that was buried in all of these FSY articles, it's $75 a person.
Look under.
I would want to go to the FSYs in Africa. Those sound like awesome activities.
It sounds to me like it costs a little bit more than $75 in Africa. You'd have to get there, Berlin.
Yes, that's right. That's right. But $75 to register and participate in the church obviously takes on the rest of the cost. That's well beyond $75 for a 5-day program.
And for you though, it would be a FSOP, not an FSY.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And just so we're clear, older persons is what I was saying. Yeah, super cool that they do that. I never got to do that as a kid.
What would for the strength of older persons look like? Wouldn't that be an interesting concept?
Listen, I'll tell you what. I know we said we were going to end, and now we're not. But like my dad, who does a Monday night, they do family home evenings with other empty nesters.
Right.
Game changing for him. He will not. Dad, I need your help on Monday night. Can you come to this thing? Nope.
God Family Home Evening.
He's got, and I mean, we didn't do it as kids. So that, that to me, I shouldn't say that. We did it a couple times, but it is a support that is unlike any other for him.
That's great.
As that goes.
That's
so,
great.
So that's what an FSOP would look like.
That's right. Still waiting to get my mission call again.
Yep. And you sort of alluded to it. It's worth mentioning. There was that FSY down in Africa over the holidays. They did it in December for down there.
They did.
I think that's super cool.
It's summertime. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so I didn't put that together. I just thought, oh, here's another break in time, maybe with schools, etc., that they were like, listen, so many people do them in the summer, air quotes, summer, but it would be summer in Kenya.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Listen, if you can get kids to show up to a church thing ever, do it. Ever. Doesn't matter.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Just don't put the chairs in a weird configuration because they'll lose their mind. Their mind. We hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body.
And if you weren't healthy enough to listen this week, you'll be healthy enough to listen next week.
And that when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger, with a U, will be saving a seat for you
on the back row
of the Cultural Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row. We really gotta go on the Cultural Hall show.